Anthony Ferraro, Dan Mancina. Two blind guys collide to bring you Four Bad Eyes Podcast.
Stop it. Welcome back, Four Bad Eyes. Dan Mancina.
I'm Anthony Ferraro.
And
Lukas
Simianer. We got a special guest today. Four Bad Eyes, Two Good Eyes this episode. Luke, we met a couple years ago over social media, talked a bunch. And then today is actually the first time that I've met you in person, in the flesh. So, Luke, give us a little introduction.
Yeah, so my name's Lukas Simianer. I am the CEO and co-founder of Clusiv, Clusiv.io. We're the world's first e-learning platform built for and by blind and visually impaired people. And met Dan just thinking he was a badass in what he was doing and reached out, and Dan gave us a lot of good feedback and been friends ever since, kind of just growing an idea into a real thing.
Mm-hmm. It's evolved quite a bit from the first idea to now. Now you're up and running, though. About to fully launch, right?
Yes. May 2nd, 2022 is a big deal. The world's first is going to launch.
Yep. So I guess we can get a bit about your background.
What kind of brought you leading up to Clusiv? I know you're here now doing all the stuff with it, but give us what brought Luke there. Where did it start? How'd you get here?
So it started when I was a kid, really. So I was born to a single mom, abject poverty, just not necessarily the fun stuff, right? And I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 7. And they, back then, I'm 29 now, so it was 97, they treated that like a form of mental retardation. So they threw me in a trailer back behind the school.
Didn't think because you couldn't read or something, they thought you didn't.
No, I actually read above grade level. It was just dyslexia, solving math differently.
Oh, you were numbers.
I was horrible with math. This closer to dyscalculia. They probably misdiagnosed me, but I didn't go back to the same guy, And so they had a trailer back behind the school, and they just said, "Oh, you're dumb," And that was my K through 12 experience. And you fast forward. I joined the Army, did a bunch of stuff, got hurt in Afghanistan, and then somehow wound up in software engineering through a long journey. And the company I worked for, my very first software engineering job, they came under Title III litigation for ADA noncompliance, right? Mm-hmm. And so their insurance rating app wasn't accessible. And they were going to pay this consulting firm $500,000. It was going to take 3 months to cure, and they would have had to settle the lawsuit. It was going to be a mess. And I suggested to the CTO then, I said, what if we 1099 my stepdad who happens to be blind? And, I'll sit him next to me where he finds a break in the app. I'll just implement a fix in the code. And they gave me the shot. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. And in 7 working days, we mitigated this lawsuit, right? So I get a raise, a promotion. I'm on cloud 9. I'm stoked. And I turned to my stepdad. My mom married him when I was 26. I was 27 at this point. So I barely really knew the guy, And he's just super downtrodden. And I'm what's up, man? Why are you upset? We just did a great thing. And he tells me, he says, Luke, for the first time in my life, I feel intellectually valued. And it sucks because it's never going to happen again. And that is when it hit me man, I already fought for this country once. And now I come to learn there's a population in our country that's just relegated to menial labor for menial wages. Mm-hmm. How do I fix? And that's what started the journey, man.
Dang, dude.
That was your stepdad?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did your mom and your stepdad meet? Was he blind when they met?
He was. He was a mechanic when he was younger, working on cool classic cars.
He was born.
No, type 2 diabetes when he was 26, 27. And
wow.
So he went from working on classic badass cars, old Challengers, Plymouth Roadrunners, super cool stuff, to being stuck packing toilet paper for less than minimum wage.
Yeah. Dang.
And so he lost his vision when he was 27, and he, at this point, was 55. And he'd been packing toilet paper in the same job for the same money in the same place the whole time. And I was like, dude, no.
Did your mom have to work?
Yes.
To support as well?
Yeah. And so it was obviously less than optimal, right? And just learning about that it started me understanding like the statistics of the problem, right? Like where does the problem go? And I don't want to get into the pitchiness of the business side of things, but it's, that's what started it.
Well, I mean, wait, so he was how old when he started losing his sight?
27.
Okay, so he was blind when you met your mom already?
Yeah. They met on like Plenty of Fish or some shit like that.
Gotcha. I was just wondering. I wonder how they connected. I wonder if his friends were...
How long was he in your life for? Like how early on?
So he wasn't really in my life for all that long. And unfortunately, like my family, we've had some family, they got divorced and we had some familial stuff after the fact. So we're like not all that close anymore. But he was in my life for like 2 years.
Okay.
And so, good dude, like no bad blood there.
27 to 29, pretty much.
Yeah.
He came in your life for the reason he was supposed to be there, and then he moved on.
Yeah, inspired the fight.
So when he like said that to you, like, finally have value and it's never going to be like this again, like how did that make you feel?
And it hit me so hard because like being told I was stupid in school, all I ever wanted was to be intellectually valued too.
It was like a trigger almost. Hardcore trigger. Okay.
And like I knew that was my next fight. Like, the whole veteran suicide epidemic, I'd lost a lot of friends to that. And so like that's why I always kept moving. Like every summer I moved. I
lost a lot of friends to suicide too. Yeah.
It's brutal. And there's nothing you feel like it's all your fault, but there's nothing you could really do and you have to like move past it.
It makes the whole world around you dark. It really does. It puts a damp vibe on everything.
And for me, I felt like I was next,
It's a very normal thought.
And to me, like the big piece of that was, this is my next mission. Like it was a blessing. It was a blessing that this was my next fight. I had something that was worth doing.
It gave you that purpose, like that drive, like I have something to work towards. Like I'm going to make a change.
Oh, yeah, and that changed, like, for perspective, man. Like, I can't measure what other startup founders go through and stuff, but, like, for me, I pitched 185 venture capital firms, this idea, and 185 of them told me I was an idiot.
Crazy. Just like back in school.
Yeah. They're like, you're stupid. This will never work. You want to sell to the government? You want to help blind people? Who cares? Like, blah, blah, blah. There's
not enough money in it. There's not enough
the government's got that covered. Like,
yeah. But you know what? Like 186, man. 186. Tell you what, we got our first check.
Yeah.
Talk to us about, just explain 186 real quick.
So 186, the 186th investor was our first investment into Clusiv. It was a $100K check. And so it took me, like, for perspective on timeline, it took me like a year and a half to get to number 186, essentially, person that I'd pitched. And then we got into like the one of the top accelerators, Techstars, for the business. And within 2 months, we'd raised $860,000 just after getting to that one yes.
Yeah. It's all about that first one.
How did that? At what number were you like? And be real. Was there a number in there where you were like, I don't know if we're gonna get there now?
200,
like 80, like 85. Were you like, I don't know, this just isn't looking good?
Man, I had a spiritual experience, genuinely. Like, I don't know if it's like this for everybody starting a business or how it was for you guys even starting this podcast and growing it. And like, but for me, it was truly spiritual. Like, I journaled this saying, and it's, faith so strong, it's merely fact. And like, I didn't give a damn if it took me 30 years. Like, this mission fucking mattered. Excuse my French.
Oh, feel free.
Swear, yeah.
And like that was the ultimate thing, is like when I committed myself and realized I would die doing this because I thought it mattered enough, people started to see it, Yeah. Like, you talk to them and they're like, damn, I don't know if I think this kid's idea is like good business, but like he's going to do something.
He has like he wants this. Like, it's not just someone pitching an idea for money. Like, you have purpose behind this. It means something to you. And that's where the strongest businesses survive, because when you're starting a business, it gets demoralizing, especially a startup. Like, it's like so many pitches, you have to talk to so many investors. There's so many things you have to just to create the business, like to make it an actual business, there's so many steps. And when people see that out in front of them, you know, they get through step like 5 or 7 and then they're discouraged and just give it up.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know how people start businesses just for money. I mean, like, I had nothing against those folks whatsoever. I appreciate it and I admire it, but like, man, you get hit in the face so many times. Like, if I didn't realize that what I was doing was so much bigger than just Luke, it would, you know, I don't know. I probably would have went back to just like being a software engineer.
Yeah. It's intense, dude.
It was.
Were you going to say it?
No.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say. Yeah, I guess I kind of want to get a little bit more into exactly what Clusiv does. I guess we can kind of
Yeah. I
peel
mean,
back a couple
yeah,
more
definitely
layers.
wanna-
And so you pair up, I guess is the main objective to pair up vision impaired people with jobs that are worth having.
kind of like,
Yeah.
so the first thing I ran about, won't say the company name because we shut it down, but the first thing I like started up and ran with was, making e-commerce accessible and trying to like help the internet in general become more accessible. And people are like, I don't care. Whatever, that sounds expensive.
I'll tell you right now, it's so frustrating when e-commerce isn't accessible.
Oh, and it's ridiculous.
That's when I was on board. I was like, yeah, I'm a believer in this. I have, experienced this every day pretty much.
Me and Dan talk about it on the podcast, like how frustrating those just little things can be.
And and that's the thing is like your average like a user experience designer doesn't even consider, accessibility. It's not just accessibility, it's usability, right? Like you can meet all the standards in the world and say, oh, we're WCAG, we're 501, like whatever. That doesn't matter if your shit's not usable. Like, is it a delightful user experience for someone rolling through with a screen reader? Or is there a constant distraction between every item? And like, how are you in e-commerce? My biggest thing was like, I'd look on like these big company websites, and I don't want to get sued, so I won't say their names, but like big merchandise companies, right? Like ones that we all have stuff from. And they're like describing a sweater and they're like, it's a green sweater. But no, this shit has like tiger stripes and it's velour and it's green and
yeah, there's no way to know really what you're getting until you actually get the item in most instances.
It doesn't enable people to have their agency and like
And
buy some shit
it
they
doesn't
want.
enable people to be independent and
No.
to have the equal experience shopping online as the average person. So
I think we have Kelly wants to say something real quick.
I just want to say from building software perspective, since that's what I do, it's also just not even thought about in the budget too. So the poor UI UX designers, they don't even it's not even factored
Not even on the
in.
radar,
It's
yeah.
like no one from the higher ups are pushing for it when they're so tight on other areas. So it's like, if anyone's hearing this, add it to your budgets.
Oh, and you're gonna love when we dig in further to Clusiv then, Kelly.
Yes,
you'll
I will.
appreciate
I'm
all this.
such a
special
technerd.
guest Kelly Ferraro.
Sorry.
That's Anthony's wife.
Hey.
It's Anthony's wife if you've
Tell
never
them to
seen her before.
Put them in your budget so I
That's
can
right.
make it happen.
Yeah.
I push for it too.
So that's when I first met you. That was the original idea that we were digging into.
Yeah. And I realized that just didn't solve the problem, right? Like
The e-commerce, it's just
It's
a
a
small piece.
it's a piece of the pie, but like I look at it, right, and how systemically do you affect true change? Not like the political shit where you're like, I want to do this. Like, no, like truly affect things that'll have an impact long after we're all dead. And the way you do that is by having the people from that demographic get into consistent leadership positions. And I'm not talking like president or even government. I'm saying like they're running companies or they're leaders within companies. And it's like, okay, well, how do we get the blind visually impaired population to be leaders within Salesforce, within Oracle, within Google, within, you name it. And
Have one of them being a project manager or
running customer success, running customer support, any and all of these things. When a blind person is running product at a big web company like BigCommerce or WordPress or something like that, that's when shit changes. And it's like, how do we start the path to get there? It might be after I'm dead that occurs, perhaps it's years or whatever, but how do you start that?
How do you start the conversation with everyone?
And it's the skills, it's the training. I can't control what the internet does right now, but I can control the quality of training available to the blind, visually impaired population, because I can make it with badass blind people. And like that.
Made by the blind, for the blind, yeah.
Yeah, and so once you give it 5 years, right? And someone who graduates from Clusiv is going to be working at one of these companies and they get promoted. And then they get promoted again. And now they're a leader talking at a conference. And I dare someone to say accessibility doesn't matter then. To me, that's my strategy.
How did you get all these blind people? Like, how did you develop your team?
Man, so like, and this is like a life hack for anybody that owns a company out there, wants to test product out there. If you go to any state vocational rehab agency and you say, hey, I want some work experience folks, they will literally ask the people that are in vocational rehab right now, which is where if you lose your vision or you've already lost your vision or you're trying to get into a new job, that's where you go to get trained up, right?
Dan does that, aren't you?
Yeah, that's part of the Vision Rehabilitation system. Yeah. Literally,
Dan's a VRT.
itching to get these kids, high school kids and adults, back into the workforce.
Yeah,
off of Social Security, all this stuff.
It's really sad.
That is the number one goal, is to get somebody a job.
Yeah. And so
or experience. Yeah.
So were you giving these people jobs from the vocational school centers?
No, not immediately. So yeah, what I was saying is like it's truly a hack. This is a hack for all business owners out there. You go to your local vocational rehab agency or division of blind services, whatever it may be, and you say, hey, I want some work experience, folks. And what that means is that they'll ask some people, say that, you tell them how many you want, 3 people, 5 people, whatever. One person, doesn't matter. They find that person who kind of fits qualifications or has the ambition or interest in what you're doing or offering, right? The state will pay them. And they're not paying them a lot. It's like minimum wage. But no less, the state pays them to essentially be your intern for almost an unlimited amount of time. Like you get like 2 to 3 months. And it's like that's what happened is the people that loved working at Clusiv and like could really adapt to the startup environment where like, shit's flying 70 different directions a day. Dan's been on those calls. It's pretty wild. And we hired him, and I said, okay, cool. You get it. You want to do this. Boom, let's go. And all of a sudden, like one of them was a 17-year-old kid named Levi. He was like, the school wasn't providing him any accessible curriculum or anything like that. But he was so smart. This kid had Logic Pro on his computer, the sound editing thing. And he made a Sonic logo for Clusiv.
Wow.
And so now our app, when you log in, we have a Sonic logo that identifies us.
Like an audio sound?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
like
that
when
is
you turn
so
on your
cool.
PlayStation or anything like that. Yeah, like you.
I never knew that. That was the name for that. Yeah.
Like Sega used to have, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Sega. Boom, boom. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a. I didn't bring my machine, but I'll have to play it for you guys.
Give us a demo of what it. Can you
do it? Just imitate it. Come on.
No, so like, I can't even imitate it, but I'll send it to you guys. But no, like, so I'm talking to the 17-year-old kid. He's like, oh, by the way, I got on Logic Pro, made you this badass thing. Oh, yeah, by the way, my mom has to braille my homework for me, so I'm going to be a little late today. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then he's like, yeah, so the base of it's chaos theory, but then there's like a little bit of, like he's referencing these things and he's like, like there's like some Fibonacci patterns in the sound. And I'm like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? This kid is so smart. And the high school system's like, whatever.
Dude.
And
I need to talk to him and his parents on that.
This really brings up, for me, when I was in high school, by the time I was like a junior, senior, like freshman, sophomore year, got by no problem with math and everything. Really smart. Like did everything in my head.
Using Braille or?
Yeah, so I used Braille mostly. And then once Braille got too technical and no one was around to teach me the more technical stuff, because I was in a sighted high school, it was almost like I had a tiny bit of vision at the time, and they had me drawing with like a marker on a piece of paper to try and see out the equations. And then it got to the point where they weren't even like paying attention to me anymore, so it was like just get by in class. It was so that
really
right,
doing you a
disservice.
Disservice. Yeah.
Great school, but that that wasn't even the school's fault. It's the way, like you're saying, how the whole system is developed.
Well, they take it for granted, and like tell me if you guys agree. This is a good research poll right here. I've noticed like there is no middle ground. It is either people are mainstreamed like you, Anthony, where you're like, hey, thrown into the school, and they're like, hey, figure it out. You know, I don't care what happens, figure it out. Or they're done like kind of what was done with me. They throw you in a trailer back behind, and they surround you with 6 adults who do everything for you. And it's like, it seems like there's no middle ground of really success.
Yeah, I think
like in the school system, from the school system.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's more of a economic thing too. How much where you raise, how much money is in that school system.
I was really fortunate to go to like a school for the blind in my early years, so they gave me the tools I needed to be proficient in the sighted world. But
that comes down to, I think, the parent getting their child in the right school district.
So resources,
even having to move. And
Dan and I were fortunate to have parents that were like, our moms were both serious fighters for like the right, accommodations and stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean,
because these there's a lot of things put in place there, but a lot of them aren't even like made aware to people.
Mm-hmm. But you're right, because there are, probably millions, right? Yeah, millions of kids who are just put in the back trailer, man, or just pushed through, and parts of the country, parts of the world where you're not even given a cane.
And
stuff like that.
Well, and I just learned how expensive some of that stuff is. Like in the process of building this company and like meeting other like people who are trying to innovate in the assistive tech space. Like, man, all this technology that makes a big difference to the quality of life.
So expensive.
Like $600 for a cane that falls apart and just vibrates all the time, but it's supposed to tell you where shit is, and it's like, what?
Dude, a Braille note's $6,000.
Yeah.
Whoa.
A Braille note to be able to take notes in school. That's not a huge. So first of all, a huge clunky Braille writer, right? Old Perkins Braille writer is
the only kind you can get.
It's like $600 to $800.
Do they have it patented or some shit, or like why is there no?
I don't get it. There's other ones that aren't as good.
Let's make one.
But no, the Braille note
it,
is like a Braille computer essentially. That's
refreshable Braille.
Yeah, refreshable Braille.
Those
screen.
shits I've seen.
$6,000. I needed that in school. I had to get it, and I had to get it on my own. Like, thank God my parents helped, but like some people are not fortunate enough to get those, and that really, it's really sad.
Yeah, the price of that stuff, because they're the way our system is set up, unless there's tens of millions of people buying something, it's going to be expensive. Thousands of people buying it.
Yeah. Talk to me more about the job though aspect of it, because there's so many blind people that leave school and then just don't get jobs, and I'm really interested about, or get paid nothing, and I'm really interested about what Clusiv is doing, like your process.
Yeah, so as of now, in the future, we like seek to open it up wider and wider and wider. But as of now, you have to be enrolled in vocational rehab, or some other contracted trainer essentially that can bill the state to get Clusiv. But once you get Clusiv, once you get enrolled, the first course, there's 2 types of courses. There's the professional skills course, which is like the de facto first thing. And then the second course is vocational specific. And so break it down really, really quick. The professional skills course, we start out with both the email platforms, Gmail and Outlook, the biggest things that are used at almost every company, right? So not just like how you use those platforms, but how you combine them into one inbox on your machine so that you have an easier time doing it.
Easy workflow.
But then also like setting your signature so you look professional AF, right? And then like how you navigate that inbox, create folders, like stay organized, the tips and tricks and the things that like sighted people take for granted, and they don't realize that there's 17,000 fucking barriers to do that with a screen reader.
It's so true. I have my wife help me so much.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to, again, reiterate that it's, designed and worked on by blind people.
Yeah.
For blind people. And
That's
this is where
important.
this is like, that's where that comes in so crucial in like developing, the actual training for those things specifically for the vision impaired and blind.
Yeah, it'd be impossible without it. Like our company, and the Proud Flex point, Dan, Proud Flex, we should all cheers to this one, at least mentally, because there's podcast equipment here. It fell to your left, Anthony. No, Clusiv is now 70% blind visually impaired employees. The team, the company, the whole company.
Yeah, it's huge. Round of applause!
And super proud of that, and that number's only going to go up because we found that the creating of our content, the creating of our processes has to be that way. But all that being said, so we do the email platforms, and then we go into the digital meeting platforms, right? Zoom, Teams, Google Meets. How do you use them all? How do you integrate an external microphone so you also sound fresh? How do you set your camera up and blur your background? Because, especially in an interview process, even if you are blind visually impaired, the expectation to have your camera on is like still very high.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, how do you get into competitive integrated employment? By being, and that's like a government term, but how do you got to be competitive? And so how do you blur your background? How do you set your camera up? All the intricacies. And then we also go into like the etiquette, right? Because one thing, like at our company, when we hire someone new, we bring someone into Clusiv, especially like if they're sighted, for example. And we have stand up, and 70% of our employees are blind, visually impaired. And they just start talking without saying who they are. No one knows whose voice that is. And so it's like, hey, no, you got to stop and say, hey, this is Luke speaking. I'm team engineer, blah, blah, blah. And you introduce yourself. And then like for the first few times or until someone tells you that they've learned your voice, like you say,
some social skills, social etiquette, that kind of stuff.
And in the course, we teach the blind client, the blind student of Clusiv, how to say that professionally. Like, hey, man, in a way that's not abrasive or makes people feel any sort of different way. You're just like, hey, man, you mind saying your name first few times you talk so I can learn your voice? And like that easy, you're now a competitive like part of the team. And there's nothing different about it. And so we go through the etiquette too, and then we go into cloud storage, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box.
Is there someone doing one-on-one sessions? Is that how it works?
No, so we build this content kind of like MapQuest. So you read it asynchronously or remotely at your own pace. So you can be at home, logged into Clusiv. Excuse me, that Modelo got me. I had to burp. I'm a man of culture. And so you can take this at your own pace, and essentially we'll link. So if it's like, learning Zoom, there will be a Zoom link at the bottom to join a demo meeting that's set up, and you can like test what you're learning right on the spot. But we give you the JAWS steps, and we also kind of like crawl, walk, run the JAWS training. Eventually we'll have it to other screen readers, but for now it's all JAWS. But essentially, like, we start with like maybe the slowest but simplest way to get to something. You're tabbing through. And then the next iteration of that, like, hey man, use a links list, hop down to here, boom. Those 9 steps are now 2 steps. And then like, I use the header key. Boom. Now I'm right in the headers, and like I'm going exactly where I want to go.
But really diving into those 9 steps makes you able to make that map in your head to know, okay, this is where I'm jumping to, and things like that. It's really important.
Helps you understand the full layout of the actual page and stuff like that. Yeah.
And we have essentially a battle map of every application that you're learning, so that in your head you can say, okay, I know that the logout button's in the top right. I know that this, knowing the geography, if you will, of certain features, we found is like a great way to increase the retention of like how to use a certain app. But after all the cloud storage, the next thing and final things we do, I was a recon guy in the Army, so I created a tactical battle map of your disclosures and your accommodations. And so we had the University of Texas Law School help us out with the accommodation and disclosure laws. But it's truly a tactical battle map of like, hey, I'm in the interview process. When do I disclose, and when is it most advantageous to me, so I don't subject myself to undue biases?
What was her name who helped out? Was it the lady that I met?
No, that was
who was that lawyer? She was amazing, dude.
That was
what's her name?
Oh, I don't remember now. But
she was amazing. She was on a call, and she was just like the most badass, like advocacy.
Oh man, yeah.
Woman I've ever heard speak. Yeah.
I gotta figure that out.
I thought that was tied in with that firm, but no. Okay.
No, it wasn't a firm. It was the University of Texas Law School.
Oh, school. Okay.
We got into like an accelerator with them, like a business program.
Gotcha.
And they gave me a bunch of law students to do stuff, and I was like, well, I'm not getting sued for anything, so. And then
how do we keep it that way?
Yeah.
And then we did accommodations, which is like, it's crazy. I won't name names, but we've talked to some of the biggest companies in this nation, people that you would think are the tip of the spear, if you will, of like inclusive hiring, and they don't, like, if they hire a blind person, right, that person doesn't show up there knowing who to talk to about getting JAWS on their work machine. And it's like, bro, you're the leader. Like, what?
Dude, I'll go at him right now. Freaking opened a Chase business account.
Oh, yeah?
Wouldn't put Braille on my cards.
What?
No Braille on my cards.
Chase.
No Braille. Wells Fargo did it for me.
They offered you a piece of paper.
They offered me a piece of paper.
Sleeve with Braille on it that you could easily.
Oh, my God. JP Morgan Chase, Clusiv banks through you. Please fix.
Yes.
Wait, you're talking about are you talking about
banks through you.
Are you talking about a credit card?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about credit card and ATM card.
You found somebody who does a credit card with Braille?
Wells Fargo.
Does.
Shout out to Wells Fargo. They print the Braille on the card, and it's very good.
Wow, I didn't know they did that.
Chase, they offered me a piece of paper to put over the card.
Yeah.
That could easily, it was just so
Gonna fade away.
unpractical.
So the second it goes in your wallet, it gets worn down.
It's unbelievable. It's like,
But to your point, Luke, yeah, every time I talk to somebody about any kind of accessibility, no matter how small or how big the company is, you always have to go through like X amount of people before you even get to anybody who has any idea of how things should be handled or talked about with accessibility and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's this thing where like you can't fault them for their ignorance because part of the societal problem, right? Like what we're all talking about, and for the rest of the world, people listening to this podcast probably know, but for the rest of the world, a lot of the blind, visually impaired population is relegated to working in a warehouse for less than minimum wage, and that's why you don't see them. That's why you don't know them. That's why they're not your neighbors because they have to plan where they live based off of a handicapped bus route, which each city has like one.
Preach.
And it's like, yo, that's why you don't get it. And so like, yeah. I don't fault you, but like, here's the deal.
No, it is ignorance.
Dan and Anthony and me are here to tell you the whole ass truth. Like fix it from here on out,
I'm the only blind guy in my neighborhood. I know that.
Same here.
I haven't seen anybody.
Oh man. It's
probably in my, oh no, I shouldn't say that. the only person walking around my neighborhood, at least.
I was gonna say, you jumping into Michigan now? That's a big one.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say my county. There's definitely some older generation that are.
But no, that's the big thing. So the second course, and this is where Kelly, you'll love it, and this is where Clusiv starts to shine. So I was pitching a big company, they're a Fortune 500 company, about hiring some Clusiv graduates, right? And I was like, man, if y'all just give me like job qualifications, right? What software are you going to use? How's it going to work? I'll train them, and they can directly come to you, and you can essentially they're good to go, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have the most loyal employees ever.
So like if they're going to work on Java or something like that.
Yeah, if they're going to work on Java, if they're going to be customer success, what's the CRM you use, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, well, we kind of keep that, close to the hip, and we don't really want to share that. But how did you build this? And I said, well, I hired a bunch of blind people from the School for the Blind, and I taught them how to be QA engineers. And they're like, oh, shit, can I get some of them? And I said, well, you can't have mine,
Yeah.
but I can definitely make more. And they said,
my blind guys.
No shit.
They're all mine.
They're all mine.
You hoarding blind people over here, dude?
I'm trying, bro. Yeah. Why do you think I brought the U-Haul to this podcast?
Trying to build the army. Yeah. Take over.
And so what I did is I pitched that to like 5 other big companies, and they were all like, yeah, you're telling me we could have accessibility like QA as a part of the product lifecycle? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, y'all really didn't think about this? Y'all have billions of dollars, and this is groundbreaking. And they're like, well, we didn't know blind people could use computers.
And they don't add it to the budget though.
We didn't know blind people could use computers, right?
Yeah.
That's
the
the
blind
thing.
person to give it to you for free.
Yeah.
I've had so many companies come to me now, and actually a couple of them were very, very big companies, and asking me to help them with making their a product or application more accessible, and ask them about a budget. Sorry, we have no budget for this. We just thought you might want to help.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Y'all can come to Clusiv.io, use discount code Anthony10, right? Anthony gets 15%. We don't have a discount code.
It's like they try and just rob. It's insane.
Oh, it is. And it's like, I don't understand the gap on that one. But that being said, the first vocational rehab or vocational focused course that we're launching is that of an accessibility engineer. So an engineering test focused on accessibility. And so we're hopefully en masse going to be producing blind visually impaired people that are trained to be QA for accessibility and deploying them into these companies so that accessibility is a part of the product lifecycle. I think that's step one of the big strategy, right?
How do we hold these companies up to the standard of hiring these blind individuals? How do we make them put their money where their mouth is? Because like you said, there's these big companies, some of the biggest in the nation with the accessibility hirings, and you would be amazed at how they are.
Yeah, there's.
So what can we do to raise awareness and like really, push that? Like,
yeah, and this isn't to pump Clusiv, but for
Please
all
do.
for all the blind visually impaired people out there, go to your state agency, request using Clusiv, because when we have supply of trained people, when we have a supply of trained people, that is when we can push even harder. And that's, I mean, honestly, what my job is now is to grow Clusiv, but it's also like fighting for this because I'm with you, Dan and Anthony. Like
We're collecting all the blind people.
the DE&I statements, right? Every company is like, here's this big DE&I thing. Here's that. But they forget the I. Like there isn't inclusion. You're not including people that are differently abled, and they just make these big bold statements. And so I think one of the first things we can do is show the value and show the supply opportunity, right? Like there's a labor shortage right now, but we have 7.6 million blind visually impaired Americans with an unemployment rate of 76%.
how many of them are massage therapists, Luke?
Blind people? We're not going to offer that training, Anthony. I don't want to get
I
your
just
hopes
wanted
up.
to make sure that's like the misconception is if you're blind, you think all
I'm
else.
gonna become a massage
I'm just gonna do massage. I had it one.
I
point.
did it.
Dan
Is that
did
a
it.
thing?
Yeah, it's really a thing.
That's the thing.
That's like one of the only things they give you as an option.
Dan told me it was becoming a stripper, but
Yeah, you can
maybe.
do that.
Dan,
There's a small niche market for that.
there's a small. I think there's a TikTok.
There's a
feed
fetish for that. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
God.
No, what was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to
I did
make
it.
aware, though, any blind or visually impaired people that are listening, because Luke's telling you go to your agency, ask for about Clusiv. Everyone who's blind or visually impaired, every state has an agency, and
Yeah.
everyone is able to use those resources.
Fucking VRT over here,
right.
dude.
And if you go to Clusiv,
Everything except O&M, but I do O&M too.
if you go to clusiv.io /student, or if you go to just clusiv.io and like at the very top, the third thing you'll come to using a screen reader is students, right? And if you click that, you can select whether you have a counselor or not. And if you do, put your info in, their info in, we'll email you and your counselor at the same time saying, hey,
Hold them liable.
Joe wants Clusiv. Right? If your name's Joe out there, I'm specifically talking to you.
Listen, Joey, huh?
Log on your computer right
It's
now.
like 5 of my cousins.
Joe, now.
Don't forget about Vinny.
Hashtag free Joe. Oh, man. Speaking of Vinny, random sidebar here. I drove by a restaurant earlier today. It said Don Vito's Italian over here in Daytona. Is that
it's
from
my
Bam
uncle.
Margera?
No, it's my
Oh,
uncle.
that's his uncle. They shipped the New York water down here to make the
Yeah,
pizza
they make
dough.
the pizza with the New York water.
Well, Don Vito's like dead, I
Don,
think.
I think that's just a classic. Was that his uncle or something?
That was his
forget.
uncle.
Who
That
did
was-
like 100 shots.
He got kicked out of a strip club in Colorado or something like that. That was the last I heard of it. And then, yeah.
I don't think it's him.
No.
I don't think it's
It was
him.
out of business, so.
Don Vito.
Give me the gabagoo.
The gabagoo.
Medical.
Dan was sounding like the Godfather earlier. It was pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Yeah, soon we will own all the blind people.
Dan was just pitching me on blind SpaceX. Elon, please hit me up. We're,
Yes, Elon, we will own you soon.
We will all be in your spaceship.
Does the Falcon 6
We'll
have
be
Braille?
building the Falcon Braille,
The Falcon Braille.
the Falcon Brailer.
We will call it the Louis rocket.
It'll be the Louis Perkins, Falcon 12.
Falcon 12.
Falcon number sign .1.12. 12, got it.
There we go. I hope Elon gets a hold of this one.
Yeah. Man, I hope you got to be a believer now, inclusive, if you're hearing that.
What are the next steps for Clusiv, though? So wait, after 186, after number 186, you got your first investor, right?
Yep. 186 was our first investor.
So like shit, you probably psyched, right? You're like, can't believe this is. Oh.
Thought we heard GoPros.
I thought you would be, like, so you're probably like 186. We did this. Like, it's happening. It's the start.
The first. So
What were those? I need to know what those feelings were like. Like 185 down, and then just
it was
tell.
it was wildly like celebratory, right? But I was like, at that point, it's not that you believe it's too good to be true, but you're just like, I'm never going to feel full again. I'm going to be so damn hungry. So I didn't really celebrate all that hard. But what I did find was that like the pressure transitioned, right? It went from like, oh man, I got to get this funding so I can build this thing because I can't do it all myself, to, 2 months later, 3 months later, we had oversubscribed, which we like overfilled our fund, right? We were targeting 500K and we ended up raising 864,000. But then at that point, it went from the pressure. Yeah, it's a big fucking problem. And, the pressure went from, oh, I got to get this money to, oh, wow, I have one opportunity to properly deploy this capital, build my dream, and change the lives of millions of people. And that was the heaviest moment of my adult fucking life so far. And
I'll take the money and run.
But it went, oh yeah, Venezuela, here we come. No, it was
he said he loves Mexico.
I had to ask Tom, the CEO, I was like, bro, do you think they'd get mad if like we, bought a Rolex? And like, yeah, bro, you cannot do that yet. Like, okay, fine. So, but that moment of pressure kind of quickly faded because we had a moment with Levi where he was just like, at that point he was no longer being paid by the state. I was paying him myself because I was like, you're not going to keep making minimum wage. We're going to pay you good money. But I can't like promise you part-time employment yet. You're a contractor. So I made him a contractor. And, I talked to him and he just had produced some great work for us. He and I had spent like 5 hours QAing a site together. And he's like, yeah, man, like my mom's really stressed about like, brailing my homework. Essentially. Like this really sucks. And like, he wasn't complaining to complain, but he was just like kind of asking for professional guidance, like what do I do? And I was like, man, I would never tell you to drop out of school. Cause like, that's not the option, I don't think, but, I don't really know, but I'm here for you. And it was after that I realized that like any pressure I felt was just stupid. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, you have a big challenge. Yeah, you have a big thing.
Here's this kid, this young kid. Yeah. At the beginning of his life, trying to make these decisions that are going to change the entire path of his life,
entire course,
in a way that can, in some ways, not be reversible. But
and it just hit me that like that's happening all over this country and other countries, and it's on me,
especially other countries.
And ever since then, man, like it went from pressure to being blessed with opportunity. Like, I get to build this shit every day. My life is so good. No matter how hard it is, 20-hour day, it's,
Where does that drive come from? Does it come from the Army? Does it come before that? Like, where does that...
It comes from getting stuffed in the trailer, man.
I think honestly, I think it comes from the inner rebel. For a long time, I attributed the entrepreneurship bug to growing up in poverty and not having much and wanting great grand things, right? But that's kind of easy to satiate. You don't have to make that much money to get yourself a decent house, maybe a nice car, and go on nice dates, right? Like that's kind of easy to like fill yourself up on.
It also doesn't fill you.
Exactly. And what I came to is that it's not growing up in poverty that made me a badass like business leader and entrepreneur. It was that I like to say fuck you. If something is wrong, I like to fight, but only for the oppressed, Like I want to be I don't want to be the underdog, but like make me the underdog.
Get me fired up right now.
Yeah. And it's like yo, you're telling me you don't care about this problem? Cool. Well, I by myself am going to go change it and I'm going to build an army behind me. And now you look at you two, you look at your followers, you look at like Dan, you've seen the growth, man. You've been a part of this since like day 5. And it's like we do have an army and it's just starting, We're just now publicly talking about it.
Coming for you, Elon.
They'll all be ours. Who said that? Shit, this is on video.
No, dude, that's amazing. Yeah. I love that sentiment and where that comes from because I definitely feel that way. Especially like, you see someone who's down, you want to fight for him, and gets me fired up. And the whole telling somebody who, like you said, getting in front of these large companies and then just seeing the lack of knowledge for the blind community and the lack of even care to do anything about it, which when they have a lot of power to actually make a difference. And then it's like, dude, what are you guys doing?
No.
So hopefully we're that.
I have a question.
That next step.
When you're like, because you have to pitch to a lot of big investors and things like that. It's a lot of, you're rubbing elbows with people that have a lot of money.
Tough people.
There's people that are very elite. Not to get like kind of swayed sometimes, but like that world, it's like you're seeing all this stuff, and you know some of it looks great. You're influenced by all the people you're around, but how do you stay true to yourself and true to your vision, like true to that path of Clusiv, and not getting jaded or swayed by any of that stuff?
I think because I enjoy it, right? Like I think it's easy to influence someone who's not happy. You know what I mean? And like, just, this isn't maybe an abstract example, right? But if you read like CIA doctrine, right? When they try to turn someone against the country, against whoever they're working for, they find the person that's under immense pressure. They're going through a divorce. They hate their boss. They, someone did them wrong and they have a reason to turn. And it's like, in this, what I'm doing, like I was telling Dan before we hopped on, like in Idaho today, right? We just opened up 2 job opportunities at college for accessibility testers. Those are going to pay like $60K each. I don't even know the blind people that are going to go into those jobs. And bro, I could shit a purple Twinkie. I'm like stoked on cloud 9. I'm like,
Shit, a purple Twinkie.
That's a Texas term I ever heard. I'm like,
That's the name of this episode.
as a matter of fact, I have shit purple Twinkie.
shit purple
I would
Twinkies.
never know if I shit a purple Twinkie. I'll tell you that one.
You don't texture check, bro?
I wish I could.
No, you don't give it
Kelly,
a grab?
did you ever see my poop?
Just after the surgery, that weird thing.
Oh, yeah. I pooped out a long strain of toilet paper after surgery.
Some gauze.
Yeah, the guy was like, sometimes I forget to tell people it's up there, and they call me after the first bowel movement.
Oh, fuck. Oh. God, did she pull it out like one of those magicians
No, they said
the
do
hat?
not pull it out. Do not. You have to naturally pass it. I had to get like all these like. I tried like an electrolyte drink that was supposed to help. Like salt. I forget. It was just
Oh, man.
I was pleading. I was literally making deals with God on the toilet.
God and the devil. Yeah.
Team butthole issues, huh?
So excited I can shit some purple gauze, man.
Shit, purple gauze. 4 bad hemorrhoids.
4 bad On the next episode of 3 Bad Assholes.
Probably got a few more than 4. Yeah.
Oh man.
Sponsored by Taco Bell.
So what's next for Clusiv? What's next for Luke? What's next for Luke?
Man, I want to take this to the next level. Like we're in that startup phase, and it's building this to growth to where it can really make the impact that it needs to make. And that's, and then expanding it into deafness and neurodivergence and like, really just building the inclusive solution. Because if there's one thing I love, it's like, oh my God, you're telling me that I can get paid to innovate for people that are oppressed. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Where was that job description in high school? like here I am, bro.
That's where you have to create them.
Exactly.
Pioneer.
You do. And, it's that's also a big part of Clusiv is it's not just training. It's not just like, hey, you happen to be blind and this is how you use Zoom and the things you need to enter the modern workforce. It's fuck that ceiling. Fuck the ceiling that people put on top of you and said, you can't escape this. Mm-hmm. Fuck the fact that people think you need to go work in a warehouse. Like, you're going to go and you're going to do whatever the hell you set your mind to. And, like, we want to enable that. Mm-hmm. That's Clusiv's, like, heart and soul.
Right. It's not just getting jobs, but jobs that can support.
It's building a family. How did we say it in the original video? It's jobs that can support making the American dream accessible.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
To be able to have a family, have a kid.
That was some of my biggest, because I grew up with my blindness like since I was born. So the whole time, I was so worried about like how am I going to support a family one day? How am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. Like serious fears at 13, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. Like terrified because I knew it was just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that feeling of being on Social Security and getting these checks and being like, this is enough to survive. This is not enough to live.
Also, just that feeling of just getting a check every month.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're capable of so much more. Yeah. You like some people need that because they're unable to actually work.
It's a trap.
but we can work. So how can people support Clusiv right now? What's the best way for next steps? Like, how can people listening get involved and support Clusiv from that? Like, if they're not blind or visually impaired, how can they support? And if they're blind, how can they get involved?
So if you're not blind, visually impaired, the best thing that you can do is you can go to your state agency, State Division of Blind Services, Workforce Commission, however they call it, and you can say, hey, have you heard about Clusiv? Any pressure, send them an email, send them an inquiry, right? Send Clusiv an email. We'll sell you who to email back. Any which way, we will make that
starting
happen.
the conversation about Clusiv.
And at your employer, if you work at a big tech company or any company, say, hey, do we have a job that a blind person can do? And maybe don't even ask that because they probably
they're
don't
not going to know. Yeah.
They're not going to know. They say, hey, why aren't we hiring, inclusive talent? Because I know a place where we can. Right there, boom. You just helped us create opportunity on both sides by doing two simple things. One question, one email. You've just helped change the life for who knows how many people. Now, if you are blind, visually impaired, you go to clusiv.io. There's an option at the very top of the nav menu that says, hey, students. It says students on it. And if you click that, you can say, I have a counselor, I don't. So if you're not currently enrolled in vocational rehab or with an agency, you put your contact information in, and we'll reach out to you and tell you how to get involved and get Clusiv training.
Is there an age requirement?
No. It works for the pre-ETs, as the state calls them, so the pre-employment transition services are the teenagers. It's really ideal for getting people that are ready to go to college, and they're like, man, I have to navigate like Blackboard or Canvas now. By the way, Blackboard, Canvas, we want to talk to you. But like,
That's right. Hit them up.
But
God, I remember using all those.
Yeah.
How can you get involved with Clusiv if you're not a student or trying to be in the workforce, but I want to learn these skills better and I'm blind?
You can, some states have social rehab is what they call it, right? Where you're like, perhaps it's a grandma that's lost her vision, but she wants her grandkids to be able to see her on Zoom, right? Some states have social rehab where it'll help with that.
And that is
do you
right
have,
now,
oh, sorry, Dan.
No, I was going to say right now that is a population that's being swept under the rug as far as the heavy push towards vocational. But
yeah,
that's what I was going to say. Is there a plan for Clusiv in the future? Like, I know everything takes a while, but to kind of include that whole group.
The entire plan. So right now, the selling to the state governments is funding the growth of Clusiv, right? We're going to become a profitable company, grow, expand, and so forth. The long-term goal is to create the Khan Academy for the blind, visually impaired. We want an open source, easy, free access way where anybody can go online and upskill and learn the skills that they need at any age, right? If you're 7 years old, you should be able to learn how to use Zoom, right? Because, remote classes these days are a thing.
and then we'll own all of them.
I was just going to say, we're going to have our Falcon dots number sign 1, 2, 4, 5.
We have Dan /Golem over here doing our social media.
We'll own all of the persons who are blind.
Dan's the recruiter, so I don't know who gets in trouble for that one.
Oh, me. I'll take the blame on that.
Oh man, no, it's
amazing.
That's the biggest thing is just, man.
Yeah,
People-
ask your local vote.
Help us fight.
Rehab, yeah.
Help us fight.
Email founders at clusiv.io if you don't know what to do and the directions are unclear and something's caught in the ceiling fan.
And if
There
you
you
own
go.
a business, reach out. Let's get somebody in there.
Yes,
A capable
yes.
person. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you have a higher up place in a business and you have power to, kind of help this move forward and get more inclusivity in your workspace.
Even if it's hiring one person. Yeah, it's big.
You don't understand. Changes lives.
It really does.
Those who want to work, you know what I mean, and are willing and are
Well, I think
grateful to have a job, man.
I think that's an interesting perspective most people don't understand is that there's a population like these people. Most people do not know what it's like to be unable to work. Like, not because they don't want to, but because no one will give them the shot. Or because they're missing some key piece of training that everybody else takes for granted.
And when you give somebody, that is the most powerful thing that's ever happened to me, is someone actually giving me an opportunity and believing in me. Change for skateboarding, that was huge. Like getting, reached out to and getting those first flow boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was like having someone believe in you is the most powerful thing that can really.
It really is. I think that's why with everything I do too, I put if there's someone that kind of takes me under their wing or shows any interest, I will put everything into it for that person too. Like just to give me a chance.
There was
to prove myself.
My first software engineering job where I discovered this whole thing. So I was like fresh out of this like coding camp thing, and like those don't really prepare you to be an engineer. They say they do, but they don't. And this guy, the CTO, took a shot on me, a big shot. And like, I'll be honest, he might have missed. Like, I wasn't that good of an engineer at that point. Like, I was still learning.
You're still shitting purple Twinkies.
They weren't even purple at that point.
Wrong use of that term.
They just,
Sorry.
they just,
I'm still trying to
When in
figure
Rome,
it.
yeah.
I was such a good
You
one.
went for it. You swung. It was good. You swung. It was all right.
oh God.
I need beeping baseballs.
Beeping baseball. Yeah, no. So like one day he comes in, and I'm mopping the kitchen, and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're an engineer." And I was like, "Bro, you pay me $60K. Like, I don't know if you know this. I got shot at for like $27K. Like in Afghanistan. Like I'm mopping the day, and I didn't even say that. I said, "Oh, do you want me to do this like vertically instead of horizontally? Like up the hall instead of down the hall?" And like I thought he was saying I was stupid because as an engineer I was mopping wrong, and he's like, "No, dude, like we have people for that." And I'm like, "No, but I spilled some shit." And he's like, "Oh, we have people for that. You're an engineer. Go like get to work.
Do your job."
And I was like, "But that's the thing is when you hire someone that hasn't had a real good opportunity in their life prior, you're unlocking a level of loyalty and retention and growth and motivation that has never been seen or accessed before, right? So outside of hiring like veterans, how do you access that at scale? Welcome to people that have been trapped in vocational rehab for 10 years. You know,
I love it.
Amazing. Is
Thank
there a what's the number 186? Is there a radio number for that in the military?
What do you mean?
Like 186, like a cop. Isn't 187 is like a murder? 186.
I think you've been listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony too much.
No, that's well, a lot of people have said that. Well, that's like Snoop Dogg. 187 on the motherfucker.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's 186 though.
Snoop. That was
Isn't that Snoop?
You were just singing Dr. Green. What's his name?
No,
Be Real.
that
Dude.
was his-
That was totally Be Real's voice.
That was his cadence.
187 on the motherfucking.
That was his cadence. You know, shit and purple tickets.
Rapping
Shit,
Twinkies
purple
over here.
tickets.
Oh man.
I just thought there'd be like a cool code for 186.
You're a cotton-headed ninny muggins.
I went for it. But
Yeah, that's offensive, Anthony. We
don't
went
talk
there.
like that.
We went there.
Thank you so much, man, for coming on.
Yeah,
Dude,
thank you.
Really appreciate you making the trip. He came all the way to Florida.
Yeah.
Just to give him
Extended
a
his
pop.
stay. Drove from Miami yesterday.
Well, the Rugged Maniac. We were
Are
here for
you
the
on
Rugged
with the
Maniac.
rugged? Yeah, you helped Levi
Yeah,
or
ran-
guided.
Yeah, Levi, the blind engineer
Yeah.
they were talking about. He ran the Rugged Maniac. He did most of the obstacles by himself.
Well, that's insane.
Yeah,
It's like an
only-
obstacle course.
Oh,
and
dude, I want to do one
running.
with him.
Yeah.
next year. Let's do it.
I'm down.
No, he did all the
Four
obstacles
bad
by
eyes
himself, except for like the fire pits. There's like these like fire logs you have to jump over.
nails.
And he's like, I don't want to do it. And I was like, dude, I'll just throw you on my back and we'll do it. And he's like, and he said, this is what Levi says to me. He says, you know, if you drop me, I can't work, right? And I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, we're good.
Yeah. We'll find a job for you. It's sweet, dude. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, well, this has been an amazing episode of Four Bad Eyes.
Very inclusive.
With a very inclusive episode.
Yes.
Like, unlike unsubscribe, leave a bad
Yeah,
comment.
please leave bad comments.
About me.
About Luke. Just about
Four
me,
bad
Dan.
eyes across the board. FOUR. You can email me, Dan@fourbadeyes.com, or
Anthony at fourbadeyes.com.
my personal account is Dan the Mancina across the board.
ASF Vision. Find us everywhere at fourbadeyes.com.
Keep pushing.
One love.
One love.
Keep pushing. And one love from Four Bad Eyes.